Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm sharing 5 super simple dump and go crockpot dinners. These are going to be perfect for busy weekdays where you have a lot going on and you just need dinner to be ready when you get home. You can throw them in your crockpot, get them all ready before you go, and you're going to have a really yummy dinner when you get back. So 5 recipes in today's video, and I do also have a full playlist of crockpot dinners, so I will have that linked down below. But let's go ahead and get into today's video. For this first dinner, I'm making some chicken queso tacos. Now, these are my favorite kind of chicken tacos. They're absolutely delicious and so creamy. I'm just starting off by spraying my crock pot with some olive oil, and then I'm adding my chicken breast right in here. I do use 3 large chicken breasts for this recipe, and then I'm just sprinkling on about half a package of taco seasoning mix. You can use a little bit more or a little bit less, just depending on your preferences. Then you're gonna want a jar of rotel canned tomatoes, as well as a jar of salsa con queso. I will leave the full recipe written out in my description box, but I just dump all of that in there. I do add a little bit of water into the jar just to get the last little bit of this queso out, and then cook that on high for about 4 hours until it's completely cooked through. Once it's all done, then I just take my hand mixer and shred it all up. I like to let the chicken sit for another like 10 minutes or so just to really absorb all of the queso flavor. But you guys, this recipe is so good. Definitely one of our family favorites. My kids love it, my husband loves it, and it's also really good on taco salad too. For this next dinner, I'm making a crock-pot beef stroganoff with some ground beef. You guys, this one turned out really good. Highly recommend it if you like beef stroganoff. Of course, I'm just spraying my crock pot, and then I'm adding in 1 large onion that I cut up into some really small pieces. You definitely want this to be finely diced up. And then I'm adding in 2 cans of mushrooms. You can also use fresh mushrooms for this recipe, but I just opted for the canned kind. And then for seasonings, you're gonna want a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, a teaspoon of dried dill, a teaspoon of garlic powder, and then you're just gonna dump in about 1 cup of chicken broth. I do add another one a little bit later on. You're gonna want a pound of ground beef. Stir all of that together, and then you're gonna let it cook on high for about 3 hours is what I did, and that came out to be about right. After 3 hours of cooking, I felt like it needed a little bit more broth, so I ended up adding in 1 cup of broth, and then I let it heat back up for probably another 20 minutes or so. While that's heating up, I'm just making a little cornstarch slurry. This is just 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with 2 tablespoons of cold water. I'm mixing that together and then adding that right into this mixture here. Once you have all of that incorporated, you're going to be adding in everything to make this super nice and creamy. So you're also going to want to add in half a cup of sour cream, 4 ounces of cream cheese at room temperature. Just get all of that mixed in there. You can also add salt and pepper at this time if you feel like it needs it. I personally did not add any. I thought it was good, but you're just gonna let all of this thicken up in your crock pot. It probably took about 20 minutes in my crock pot, and then I just served this over some egg noodles with some broccoli on the side. You guys, this was really good and super simple, especially if you already have that ground beef cooked and ready to go. For this next dinner, I'm making a simple shredded barbecue chicken, but you guys, this one has so much flavor. If you've never tried this chicken before, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. It's only 4 ingredients and it's so quick and easy to throw together. So I'm just using my smaller crock pot for this recipe, and I'm adding in about 3 chicken breasts. Of course, it's gonna depend on the size. And then I just season them with a little bit of salt, pepper, and garlic powder. Sprinkle that right on top to taste. For barbecue sauce, I always like to use the Sweet Baby Ray's Original. It's my favorite. You're gonna want a cup of that. Just go ahead and dump it in there. And then you're also gonna want a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. I do like to just kind of crumble mine up in there. And then you're also gonna want a 1/4 cup of zesty Italian dressing. You can use the original Italian, but I do prefer the zesty. And then you're also gonna want a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And that is it for this recipe. Just cook it on high for 4 hours. Once the chicken is fully cooked through, you're just gonna take that out of the barbecue sauce. You're gonna shred it up with your hand mixer, or of course you could also use 2 forks if you wanted to, but I always like to use my hand mixer for some really nice finely shredded chicken, and then you're just going to dump that back into the crock pot for another like 10 minutes or so, just to really absorb all of the barbecue flavor, because I promise you it's really, really good. Lots of flavor in this barbecue chicken. This is perfect for sandwiches. You can use it in salads, wraps. We love making barbecue chicken quesadillas. It's a really, really good, quick and easy dinner, and it also freezes well. So if you want to pop that in the freezer and have it for later, it's perfect for that too. For this next dinner, I'm making a really easy taco soup. You probably have most of these things on hand already, so it's great for a busy weeknight and when you don't want to run to the grocery store. So I'm just dumping in a pound of some lean ground beef that I already cooked up the day before. I just had it chilling in the fridge. And then I'm also dumping in a can of corn. I just drained this off, got all of the liquid out, and then I'm also dumping in 1 can of beans. You could use 2 beans like the recipe calls for, but I did a little bit less. Then you're going to want a can of petite diced tomatoes as well as a can of rotel tomatoes, and you don't have to drain the juice out of either of those, just go ahead and dump them right in. This is just a 2-cup can of beef broth. And then I'm also dumping in 2 packages of mix here. I've got a taco seasoning mix, and then I've also got a ranch seasoning mix that I'm dumping in there. I did not add any salt to this recipe, but I did go ahead and add in a 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder. I gave this a little mix together, and then I let this cook on low for about 4 hours, and that was about the right amount for my crock pot. Once this soup was all done cooking, I just topped it with a little bit of shredded cheese. You could also add sour cream, tortilla chips, whatever else you want on top, but this was a really delicious and easy dinner. For this next dinner, I'm making a really delicious Tuscan chicken pasta. This was delicious. I am just starting over on my stovetop here. I'm just melting a couple tablespoons of butter, and then I'm adding in about a tablespoon of some minced garlic. I let that cook up for just a couple of minutes. The recipe said 3 to 5 minutes, but I felt like that was a lot and I didn't want to burn the garlic, so I just did probably 1.5 minutes. And then once that was all done, I'm adding in 2 cups of chicken broth, 1 cup of heavy cream, as well as 1/2 cup of some sun-dried tomatoes. Now I did go ahead and chop all of these up. You want them in small pieces. You definitely don't want large chunks in there. And this is the kind in the olive oil, and you can go ahead and leave it in there. You're also gonna want 3/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and you're just gonna melt all of this together and let it thicken up a bit. Now while that sauce is thickening on my stovetop, I'm just getting my crock pot ready here. So I'm adding in 4 chicken breasts. Mine were frozen. The recipe called for fresh, but I almost always use frozen and it works just fine as long as you're cooking it on high, or that's what I found anyway. And then you're gonna want a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1 teaspoon of salt, as well as 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I just dumped all of those seasonings right on top of the chicken, and then once that sauce was thickened up a little bit and the cheese was all melted, I just dumped that over the top. Now I cooked this on high for about 4 to 5 hours because my chicken breasts were frozen, but you can obviously adjust the cooking time if you are using the fresh ones. Once that was all done cooking, I just pulled all of my chicken breasts out and I kind of chopped up the chicken. The chicken was super tender and kind of fell apart. So it wasn't perfectly cubed, but you guys, this turned out really, really delicious. I'm just getting all of that chicken cubed up. Of course, you could also shred this if you wanted to, or slice it and serve it with the sauce that way, but it's just personal preference. Once my chicken was all chopped up, I just added it right back into my slow cooker with all of the sauce, and I really wanted the chicken to simmer in this liquid just a little bit to absorb all of the flavors. Once it had sat for probably 10 minutes or so, I just cooked up my pasta. I just used a spaghetti. You can use whatever you have on hand for this recipe, and you could also just serve the chicken and the sauce over the pasta, but again, I just decided to incorporate it so the pasta would really absorb all of those flavors. I let it sit for just a couple of minutes and I felt like that really absorbed all the flavors, but this was definitely a hit in our house. It was really good, topped with some Parmesan cheese and a little bit of parsley on top. I did omit the spinach for this recipe, but it was absolutely delicious. Well, that is gonna wrap up today's Crockpot video. I hope that you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to check out my Crockpot playlist. I will have it linked in my description box. There's tons of Crockpot dinners in there, so if you like this video, definitely check that out. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.